All right. All right. Looks like we are up and running. Do you see anything, Tim?
I'm looking for you.
Let's see.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. So we are up and live. So you see the new sort of background. It's very basic. I haven't added anything interesting to it yet, but whole idea is to give it that sort of um, feel. So image of myself is bigger compared to you on the right. So eventually I want to have you camera wise in, so that way you're in live with me. So that way the big image of you isn't just a still photo, but like a video feed. So that
Yeah,
you're right
I'm
here.
like, my head's like twice the size of your head.
I know it's huge, right? Yeah, it's big, but like I don't know. It's just like just testing the reflex. The image of my camera photo here is bigger, way bigger than what we were before. It used to be that in the old format we was in a small box.
Yeah, this is much better.
hmm You get to see each other a little bit more. It'll be interesting. Like if I can get that, if we were to be able to get like a solid feed of you, then it would be just right there on your right and your left, and then we have we can put like a separator in the middle, and then our topics here are on the left. And for those who are just joining us now, we're just discovering the new sort of feel of what the sort of screen is supposed to look like, and then if like you want to what I can do is like if I we have a topic on the left, for example. So topic one, um, you talk about sharks. Let's say we just want to talk about something like just whatever it's going to be. I'm just going to make a topic up and we're going to talk about sharks. Once we once we are okay and done with this with talking about that one particular topic, we can then make it disappear and then go straight to topic two. I figured an interactive board or something like that would be good. And then once we're done with topic two, for example, that could disappear. Topic three, so forth, and then like topic four, another one thing like that. And then you can bring it back up,
Nice.
change it, stuff like that, if you want to do that. So
That can be switched on the fly.
very much can. We can put images in there too. You can do just text. You can do all sorts of different stuff. You don't actually have to have just that in there. So, for
Can
example,
it
like
move?
can it move? What do you mean if it can it move? Like you want
So, like, if you had four boxes, could you have them all move, kind of scroll upwards, and have the top one just sort of roll off screen?
to? No, I'd have to do that differently. But I can do one like
Okay,
that. Yeah,
that doesn't have to be. I'm
yeah,
just imagining.
yeah. I can do one something like that. I just have to like if your imagination is just to have like instead of the box losing the text, but to just disappear all in general, we could do something like that. It would be a little different.
Or change the background color to indicate that it's sort of done.
hmm
If you made it all go solid black, it would functionally disappear.
Yeah, yeah, and just slowly fade out. So we could do something like that also. I have to work on
That's
that a
very
little bit,
well.
but well, we can do stuff. It looks like
Yeah.
but yeah, this particular cast is just more about like figuring out like what it is we're trying to get back into the swing of things, trying to sort of figure stuff out. I had like topics on here that really didn't make any sense, but like topic one originally was I was reading something uh, online on Reddit today that made a lot of news. A brother came to uh, his sister wedding and brought his significant other a llama. So
Oh, I saw the picture of that.
yeah, it was really funny. The funny part about it was that I thought was really odd was that when you look up llama and wedding, like if you go onto Google and you type it llama at wedding, that brother's image is like the first thing that pops up. So like you see that, and then there's the image right there on stream, and you can see just like look at the face of the sister. She's like pissed off, and he's just laughing. But that's the first image that pops up. The crazy part about it is that if you actually um, put in llama at wedding into Google, the the other images that pop up are hilarious. So it's like it's not just that pops up, but just like all sorts of other people. Like there's there's a whole bunch of people that apparently have llamas at their weddings. Uh, like
This
and
is
they're
amazing.
yeah, and it's just like other people like they have llamas and alpacas. You can rent llamas for their wedding. I mean, like I didn't realize how normal they made it look like because it's not just like one couple that has it. There's a whole bunch of people, and it's like, why is it so normal to have a llama of some sort at your wedding? And like this particular like brother and sister combo, I guess, got famous because of the little joke that he pulled. But apparently, it's it's somewhat normal. So I don't understand. Like, is there a reason for this? I just didn't get it. It's
I
like,
think people have, they always incorporate their pets or whatever.
hmm
And as the internet has made all things absurd suddenly mainstream, I think this is just another example of that. I think all the kooky ideas people have for their weddings, as long as it ends up on YouTube, then you'll see it everywhere.
yeah,
You remember when people started doing kind of like flash mob dancing for people's weddings, and
yeah, yeah,
then
yeah,
suddenly
yeah,
everyone was doing that? This is probably the same thing. It's like llamas are kind of silly and cute and whatever. I don't know how easy it is to get your hands on one of them, but or two of them in this case. But why not? These things, as long as it doesn't crap on your dress or bite somebody, what the hell?
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting. So it's like they seem very, I guess, docile in a way. I mean, like you look at all the photos and stuff. I don't know, show some more of the photos that are available on Google.
They're very friendly.
They are very friendly, and like I think
But
like
why was this lady so angry?
she was pissed because what happened was is the story behind it all is that she was saying she was actually imagining what her wedding was be like 5 years ago, and she was like 17, the way the story goes, and they're in a car on a road trip together, and her brother, being her brother, was like, "You don't even have somebody. I don't even give a crap. I'm never gonna come to your wedding." It's like, "Yes, you are." It's like, and then it escalates to the fact that it's like, "All right, if you're gonna get married, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring as a llama as my date, and that's what's going to happen to your wedding." And he's like, "Fine, you're allowed to bring a llama to my wedding if I get married." Flash forward 5 years later, and she's actually getting married, and like he remembers this conversation that he had with his sister in the car, and he actually brings a llama to the wedding. The funny part about it is it's not like it was a secret that he was going to bring a llama to the wedding, because in the CNN article that I can click here about him going to his sister's wedding, he actually posted on Reddit about 3 weeks ago, um, like how to size a llama for a tuxedo. So it was like one of the questions that he asked was like in one of the subreddits was like there's no such thing as a stupid question, like are no stupid questions or something, and he's like, how do I know the size of a llama who needs to wear a tuxedo or something like that? So he actually like tries to get like llama experts to like create him a tuxedo, a size tuxedo that would fit a llama that he was going to bring to this wedding. So everybody was like, "All right, haha, very funny. You're not going to actually bring a llama to a wedding." And then like
Does he own the llama?
no, he rented it. He said it cost him like $450.
I feel like this could start a trend of people bringing llamas just everywhere, like to prom and to wait for someone to come in. At the airport, instead of holding a sign, you might just have a llama, shit like that.
It could. I mean, like the guy is getting a lot of media attention because of it. I think it's more the media attention from the fact that the sister is so upset at him. Actually, he's standing there with his goofy smile, and his sister has this like expression on her face, like "What the fuck?" It's like, you actually brought a llama to my wedding. What the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a joke,
hmm
and she assumed it would stay a joke. The guy, I mean, I don't know what to say. He's kind of an asshole for shitting on his sister's wedding because, if you knew that she wouldn't have the kind of personality that would let it roll off or turn into like a, oh my god, this is amazing, I want this. It's like my favorite thing right now.
Hmm.
Then he should have expected this sort of outcome.
And that's the thing. Like that leads to the second question is like did he know that the sister was going to be wholly accepting of it and knew this was just going to be a joke that she was going to wholeheartedly accept, or was he just seriously just being a dick? And I don't know. It's like I honestly believe that he was just being a dick at this point. It was just I think he just took the joke as far as he could, and I don't think his sister was thinking that he was going to be serious. Apparently, the llama was a real hit based on the Reddit post that I saw. The llama hung out outside the reception hall, greeting guests as they walked in the reception hall. As they walked in, the llama was outside in his tuxedo, just sort of hanging out, like doing its thing for like the 3 hours or 4 hours of the reception, just outside, and people were taking photos of it, and it actually turned into like a really cool party favor. I guess is that what you would call that llama, but
I mean, the photo
yeah.
ops the next level,
Hmm.
and again, if it's a friendly animal, why wouldn't everyone enjoy it?
That's exactly
But
right. Yeah.
you know how people are about their special day, and you know how some people are like waiting their whole lives to have this
Hmm.
imagined perfect wedding. And if it didn't include a farm animal, then you're kind of screwed.
Well,
So the homie might be paying this one off for years.
oh, I know. And like the sister who did get married and who was the bride in this particular case, um, said that she's going to get her revenge. She just doesn't know when yet. So, yeah, homie better expect like some hardcore revenge. But it leads into our second topic, I think, because um, I am currently very ambivalent about one of the subreddits that I love. And that subreddit is like, am I the asshole? And I've sort of loved this site when it came to like just reading some of the situations that people are in and trying to figure out whether or not they've done anything wrong. The real issue is that this site has now succumbed, I think, to groupthink because people who don't express the sort of opinion that the masses express uh, uh, become immediately downvoted and are shunned for their opinion. So it's not like there is actual debate anymore whether uh, somebody is an asshole or not. It's if you don't go with the popular sentiment of what one person is saying, then immediately your opinion doesn't matter. And it's unfortunate because it used to be, I think, that this site was very good at trying to sort of weigh the perspectives of one side or another, but that is all gone. And I just feel like it's a shame because I think it goes beyond like what I think the side the the side the this particular subreddit is supposed to do. Honestly, because I think the idea was to get it out there to all right, analyze all the perspectives and see whether or not like the behavior was correct or incorrect. But instead, it's like if you don't go with the group think, you're sort of effed, and you'll get downvoted into
So,
oblivion.
so they're punishing people for having unpopular opinion.
Very much so. And I think the thing about it is like I think a lot of subreddits fall into that sort of the popular opinion or popular sentiment doesn't really like it dominates so much that if you're like anti that, then you immediately get downvoted, and it's just you don't get any sort of critical view as to your opinion or not, or you get criticized or trolled for your opinion a lot of the times, like based on what it is that you post, even if you're just basically trying to ask anything. Like There have been multiple times where not just in this channel, but in other subreddits where you're honestly asking a question about something, and you'll get downvoted immediately. Unless you clarify that, oh, you didn't understand, you're actually honestly asking a question about something, or you make it abundantly clear that you're not trying to in any way harm the group opinion, but you're actually just wondering why people think that way because you actually don't know. But before usually that happens, you actually get a ton of negative votes, so your karma immediately gets gone down, and your opinion is sort of reduced to that of somebody who either has a negative opinion or somebody that like uh, that the group says that the opinion doesn't matter for. So it's like, I don't know. So I've gotten to the point where I'm on this site and I basically put out the opposite opinion just to see how much I get downvoted for with a rational um, anti sort of popular sentiment answer, and it's crazy. You get destroyed for having just the like a logical counter opinion to what has been being done. Sometimes there are
Are
no
they
counter opinions
opinions that
too.
you really believe in, or are you
No,
just playing the devil's advocate?
playing devil's advocate for some of the stuff. Like there are certain situations where you play devil's advocate. One of them was um, there was a guy on this for he was trying to figure out whether or not the kid that he had was actually his. And he the reason he did it, he goes into this story about like, am I an asshole for taking a paternity test for my 12-year-old son? And the reason he goes about it is because he describes himself as having like a pretty much a dead marriage, and he only is in this marriage because he loves his son so much. He ends up having a reunion of some sort with a guy that he knew from a long long time ago, and the guy brings up the fact that is like, and he's like, I can't believe that you stole so and so away from me. That Vinay was wild. It's like, well, wait, what do you mean, what are you talking about? It's like, when you started dating that particular girl, I had been dating her for 6 months or so, and what he then started to realize was that even though he was dating this girl, she was still going out with this guy that he was friends with, and she was basically two tying him at the same time, which made him, and then that he was about to break up with her, and she got pregnant, and they ended up getting married and raising this kid together. And he immediately became suspicious. He's like, well, I never knew that she was going out with another person. So like he didn't know that at the time he was also going out with her with this other guy that he was friends with. So he got immediately suspicious because of the time of her pregnancy, timing of the pregnancy. Then he took responsibility and married her and raised her kid. But then he brought a home DNA kit and like tested the kid and found out that the kid wasn't his. And for 12 years, like this kid that he's been loving as his own son isn't actually his biological son, and he's like completely like fucked up over it, and was asking, is like, am I an asshole for DNA testing my son when I found out all of this information? And a lot of people were like, there was a overall opinion of like, no, he wasn't really an asshole, but I posted information as to what happens in this particular case. Legally, the even though biologically he's not his son, that kid, by all means, with regards to the law, is his son no matter whatever he can do. The problem is that he wanted to confront this wife of his about like, why the hell did you never tell me that there was a possibility like that this was never my kid, even though he's he doesn't care, he loves the kid so much. And I told him, it's like, there are issues for you if you do this. One, if you were to basically ask, confront her and basically say, hey, look, I found out that this kid is not my son, and you lied to me for all these years. Why did you do that? Why didn't you never tell me that you were going out with another person? It's going to end up all wrong, and she could divorce him, and there would be lasting consequences. He would basically most likely lose the ability to basically visit his son, the kid that he's raised for 12 years. Though financially, he would be 100% on the hook for his son, no matter what he could, and that this wife of his could literally take him to the cleaners and literally suck him dry, even though he wasn't actually the biological father, because of the things that he did, such as signing the birth certificate and raising him as his son for 12 years. And I'm pointing that out, and I'm getting destroyed because apparently it was not uh, proper to bring up the actual consequences that could happen from him doing the actual thing that he wanted to know whether or not he was an asshole for. So it's like, yeah, it's the site is not helpful, and it's just like in a way, it's all it is just a whole bunch of people judging behaviors of people, and then I just want to leave it up at that. And I don't know. It's like I really got into it because it's like I just couldn't believe the opinion of some people. It's like, why wouldn't you want him to know what possible legal consequences could happen if he were to 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 confront his wife? And a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's none of our business. No, it's not going to happen. She's not going to leave him. Blah blah blah." It's like, the fuck you don't know. These people are. This guy seemed like he was in a terrible situation, and he's going to be in a terrible situation if he confronts this woman. So, like, does he just let? Maybe he needs to know that before he actually does it, because um, if you don't know the full consequences of what could happen by confronting your quote wife who had a kid that isn't even yours for 12 years, I don't know. But I got really emotionally involved in that particular posting. I was like,
Are
holy
you,
shit! It's
are you
like,
doing this on like an anonymous account, or are you doing this on your regular?
I'm doing this on my regular account most of the time.
So you don't care if you get, I mean, your karma's knocked down to negative 45.
Mm-mm. I post in other places. So it's like the thing about it is like I don't give a shit. It's just an internet number when it comes to it. So
Right.
it's like I'm still in the way positive territory because I post in other places and do stuff. But this is just one of those things in which I didn't actually post anything negative in this particular case and got like negative downvoted. I posted something I thought was helpful and then got barraged by people who thought that it was improper to post something like that. I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you guys? And it's like I would have thought that something like that would be helpful for somebody who was about to confront his wife who basically cucked him for 12 years. So I don't know. So
Yeah, some people are not actually looking for help. Some
yeah.
people want, they want people to agree with. It's almost like another great lead into box three over there, but I don't think we need to go there that fast. Um, as far as politics go. Uh, I don't actually spend a lot of time on Am I the Asshole?
hmm
Um, just because oftentimes it doesn't seem like it's much of a choice. It seems like most of the time it's people posting because they know their partner's the asshole and they want people to agree with them,
hmm
or the person is an asshole and is completely oblivious to it. And even though they should know that they're their asshole, they want to try to defend themselves. And then they come on and get kicked in the face. Um, so I don't know. I don't find it to be stimulating to go
Yeah.
on there when it's already known. If there's a good one every once in a while that really is divided, then I really get into it and I'll read down and down, 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 down. But, those are few and far between.
I think so too. I think some of them are so obvious that there really doesn't need to be a reason. like to comment when they're so blatant that it's like, dude, it's like you're just trying to justify your behavior, or it's like a very very common one is dealing with family members. There was there was one recently that screamed that it was from an Indian girl, and poor girl was rejected by her boyfriend's family, and the I guess the mother and the father rejected this poor young lady from dating their son, and they're still together up to this point. And I don't know, it was I think it was even trending on All for a little bit too. But they arranged a marriage for this poor young lady's boyfriend, and she got invited to the wedding uh, by the sisters of her boyfriend because they just wanted her to be there. But it was like am I the asshole? The title of it made no sense until you read it. Was like am I the asshole for not attending my boyfriend's wedding to another woman? And it was like, no. I don't understand how you could be in any way. And then she explains the whole story, and it's like, no, not in any way, shape, or form. And there was just a lot of stories underneath it about from other people who were also like, oh yeah, it's like I was in an arranged marriage and this is how it happened, and like a lot of people were telling their stories about like how either they were rejected from another person and it happened to them, or they were the one that was arranged and they were dating somebody else and had to dump another person. And it was just very interesting where the conversation sort of led out because my brother was in a certain situation. He's not my brother; he's my cousin, but he was literally sort of arranged to end up marrying who he ended up marrying because they did not approve of the woman that he was dating at the time. They got him to go back to Indonesia and literally sort of hooked him up with this girl who they thought would be a better match, and now they're married. But at the time when he left, he was dating somebody else. And it's like, what the fuck? It's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, because of the family and the pressures on what he should be doing and stuff like that, it sort of happens. And it's like, it still happens in parts of the world, in Asia and stuff like that, and it's still considered somewhat normal. So, I don't know. I
So I
was,
think it's
yeah.
while I don't have any personal experience with this,
Hmm.
I do think it's interesting that Reddit can pull together people from the farthest places with with the most discrete experiences and cultures and backgrounds, all this kind of stuff. So when you first started telling the story, I was thinking like, oh, I imagine this girl told her story, and there were a whole bunch of people
Hmm.
in America responding to her with no clue about her, what's going on in her life.
Hmm.
Which I imagine there's a bunch of that, but beyond that, like the people that are like, oh well, caste systems don't mean anything. You should just marry who you want to. Well, that doesn't really apply to these people in that particular situation. So I don't think advice like that's very good. But then you said people came out of the woodwork talking about their own personal experience with it, and so then you get something a little more valuable and more helpful to that person.
Yeah, it was very
Like,
refreshing to see because it wasn't just that pseudo, like, white person sort of reply. I was like, oh my god. And it's like that's you and your boyfriend should just go out there and not consider the family and just get married and be happy. It was like none of that. It was actually people telling stories about what happened in their family with regards to arranged marriages and like how like family pressures uh, like forced them to either marry somebody that they either didn't know or didn't love, or forced them to dump somebody because their family was just not wholeheartedly accepting of who they were dating. And it was more interesting because we had like a really worldly aspect of what people's experiences were of what this poor young lady was going through. She was completely not the asshole in a way, and everybody agreed about that, and it was like almost overwhelmingly 100% on her side. Um, but it was just one of those things in which it devolved into like what people experience with regards to like family pressures of getting married and what it means to succumb to family pressure when your family doesn't approve of your partner, especially when you're serious, so that they take it upon themselves to find you somebody else that they absolutely approve of, even though you don't even know who they are. So, um, it does give, like, it was very interesting to see that sort of worldly aspect of Reddit sort of pop through, and people just like sort of just, I think, who were posting have a real worldly experience with it. So it was a very interesting sort of comment thread with regards to it all. So
Yeah, that's
mhm.
you get all types, and uh, it's also funny when you see people who come in and try to. I mean, it's not mansplaining because it's not necessarily a man saying it to a woman, but it's them coming in and just trying to dominate with saying, "Well, here's what it is. You're wrong, and this is why," and you don't know. I've had a couple posts where I didn't go into great detail,
Mhm.
and people have come in and attacked me and talked about what I don't know what I'm talking about. For example, if I talk about interracial marriage, um, people might say something, and then I have the option to come back and say, actually, I have perfect experience with that. Or the other part of me is like, I know what's going to happen here. I'm going to respond. They're going to respond. I'm going to respond. It's going to go on. It's going to take a lot of my life and energy, and they're still going to be an idiot at the end of it.
Mhm.
So do I bother? And it just depends. If something they said really touched me, I'll go in and I'll get them. But a lot of time I just let it go.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing about it is that that strong opinionated opinion that they are willing to sort of put out there, you know, is very off-putting sometimes, and sometimes they do it specifically just to either stop you from continuing your opinion or try to denigrate your opinion as if it looks like that you don't really know. But nobody on the internet really knows exactly what everybody's background is when they're explaining um, situations that they're trying to sort of relate to, as to Reddit specifically. So it's very interesting. So yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things that I think, um, when you post in these selective boards and you answer questions with regards to these, it's like you have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt. But it's always interesting to see somebody come out with like an aggressive stance over a topic, whether it be in support or against it, and then immediately attacking with like, "Oh, you don't know what you're doing," because, or what, you don't know what you're saying because of blah 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 blah, and whether or not their opinion either holds water or is in any way sort of just them boasting, thinking that they're an expert on the topic that they're talking about. So
Well, a lot of people like to hear the sound of their own voice, and you can't really. You fight too much, and you're going to lose.
hmm
Part of it is just the, you know.
yeah.
But no, I can get lost in Reddit for days, and there is always something to be read and always something interesting. I especially get caught up in the relationship dating stuff. There's a lot of overlap, but it's just very curious to see what people struggle with and see what people put out there. A lot of people are giving advice that has been asked for, and um, it's really interesting to see what people come up with when they think they've got it figured out. Because sometimes that is kind of scary too. Like especially with the guys trying, how to get the girl stuff. That's major cringe.
But the thing about it is that there are so many of them. So many people complain about the same thing. It's almost as if sometimes when you read some of the posts that you see on relationship advice, or some of the others like dating over 30, or things like that, it seems like the same issue seems to repeat itself over and over and over again. There are common threads among all of them, and sometimes it's about spitting out the same advice to people, and sometimes it's letting people know what they're posting is opinionated wrong, because you've seen the posts where it's like it's not them, it's not me, it's always them, it's their fault for this or it's their fault for that, and the unwillingness to take a look at themselves and basically say it's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with me, it's the people out there that are wrong. Which makes it, which is like, all you can do is sort of shake your head and look at the post, and it's like, I'm not going to contribute to this, because like this guy is, any help that I would try to contribute to this particular person is just going to fall on deaf ears, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah,
Some people have a very limited relationship with the mirror.
hmm,
They don't spend a lot of time in front of it, looking inward, doing introspection, that kind of thing. So, a lot of times you kind of wonder, the person put so much energy into writing this whole thing out. Did they actually read it back and think it through and kind of imagine how it might be heard by the audience? Because it's almost like they're surprised when people push back
oh yeah.
and they immediately attack that as well.
it,
You know,
it's always it's always interesting when people actually take the advice to heart, when you see like a post by the op or something like that that says, oh, I've never really thought about it that way. That's actually nice. You never see that though, because immediately if somebody tries to give a little bit of advice and there is a post, a lot of it is like, you don't know what you're talking about, or that's not the case, or it's definitely not me, and it's just like, nah, there's no point. There's no point in arguing, because it's like you're just looking for somebody to whine to and sympathize to your situation, even though you're not willing to actually do anything about it. So, and a lot of Reddit is just whining. A lot of people looking for a sympathetic shoulder to sort of cry on and be like, and to justify whatever opinion or preconceptual opinion that they've already have, to go in just to make themselves feel better, as opposed to looking for actual real change, which can be really depressing too. So it's like, oh, okay. Like, oh. But yeah. So, uh, just to go on, did you vote in the primaries yesterday?
I did.
You did? Oh, good. I'm not going to ask who you voted for or what, but Super Tuesday was yesterday for those who are watching in the political arena. Super Tuesday is the term for a whole bunch of states had their primaries on the same day, and coming out of it, there was a couple of things that came out of it that was very interesting. The preemptive frontrunner ended up only winning like 3 or 4 states. Yes, Super Tuesday, and the guy who was supposedly left for dead, who now it looks like the Democrats are trying to coalesce around, uh, former Vice President Joe Biden, ended up winning like 8 states on Super Tuesday, which was way more than they thought he was going to. The greatest statistic I saw was that billionaire Michael Bloomberg spent $559 million to win American Samoa.
Oh, nice.
So,
Yeah, he get like 50%.
yeah, something like that. Like the delegates to millions ratio was, he has like, I think like 32 delegates or something like that, and for every delegate that he got, it cost him a minimum of like $10 million or something like that, something insane. Um, and I was discussing this with my family. My mother and my aunt, who are older, went out and voted, and they voted for their candidate. But I was telling them, it's like, this morning when I saw, it's like, oh, Bloomberg dropped out, and they were like, oh, it's like, that's interesting. I see his ads all over the place, because he had this weird strategy of not using the internet as much as basically just flooding as much television as possible. Like there were so many Bloomberg ads if you watch TV that a person in their 60s who's retired or something like that couldn't watch a channel um, without seeing a Bloomberg ad. It was sort of crazy, and they had strong opinions about him. They sort of liked him. They liked what he said, blah blah blah. But they were sort of sad this morning that he suspended his campaign. And I was like, this dude just tried to buy the nomination with almost $1 billion. But my question to you is that he spent $559 million to win American Samoa, and that's all he got. And he's not going to win another state again because he's already pulled out of the race and is not going to be willing to invest any more money. What do you think we should have spent that $559 million on? Because there was a great poll of things that we could have spent, and I want to pull it up, and I just want to. Uh, it was just one of those things in which, like, the things that people listed off that they could actually have done with the $559 million is staggering. So, like, Tim,
Do you
what
want me to
would?
say before?
Oh, so for example, do you
Well,
remember
do you want me to say before you go in there,
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
so that
want I
I'm
want to
not?
know what
Yeah.
you would have spent that $559 million on, in
Uh,
order for you personally. Like if you had that purse to spend on the American people, what do you think you would have spent that on?
so there's a million things I can think of, but if it was just like drop it in one spot,
Mm-hmm.
Flint, you know,
Mm-hmm.
repipe Flint, get those people some drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much that's supposed to cost, but that seems like it's ballpark. Seems like
Okay.
it's the right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you could do really good work with homelessness in America. You could probably
Mm-hmm.
do some work there.
Yep.
Um, you know what you could do? I bet $500 million would be enough to invest in developing the software and technology to make it so everyone in the country could vote quickly, easily, without fraud,
Mm-hmm.
and that would solve a whole lot of problems that are supposedly not there. So, I mean, honestly, I think that's just because of how frustrated I am with the government and politics right now.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that would make a lot of sense to me. But yeah, there are people that are needy before that. So
Yep.
I don't know.
So some of the things that you had mentioned were listed as some things that they could spend their money on. For example, the Flint water crisis. Um, could Bloomberg have spent money on the Flint water crisis? Absolutely. The cost for fixing the pipes in Flint recently in an article said would have only cost $59 million to fix. Like if
Wow,
Bloomberg would have
that's
actually been able
unheard
to
of.
go in there and do it himself, he could have done it himself with a tenth of the money that he spent on ads. You want me to keep going? Because there was some
Yeah, let's
other
spend it
crazy
all.
staggering stuff. So for $100 million, Michael Bloomberg could have wiped out $1 billion in medical debt via a charity that all they do is buy leftover medical debt at a rate of 10 to 1. Uh, I don't know if you've ever watched that show that John Oliver does, but John Oliver took basically he spent $70,000 of their show's money to wipe out $700,000 in medical debt. Michael Bloomberg could have literally paid $100 million to this company to wipe out $1 billion of outstanding medical debt, which they say could have been as much as 70% of the country's medical debt all in one go. With just $100 million, and that is 20% of what he spent on
There's
commercials
no
and
cap on
advertising.
that.
There's no cap
Like
on
they would legitimately have done that.
that. They could have
They would have spent
absolutely done. Yeah, they
nine
could have.
hundred million.
Yeah. It would have been the equivalent of $1 billion in medical debt. What they do is they buy remnant debt, do all sorts of other stuff, and free people from medical debt. It's an actual thing. For every dollar that you spend with them, you free up $10 in medical debt for somebody out there. It's a charity that does all of this stuff. So $100 million would have been the equivalent to basically wiping out $1 billion in medical debt. They say that the outstanding medical debt of the United States is somewhere in the hundreds of billions, which is, when you really think about it, insane. So there was that. Uh, for three
So we're at
for
150 million
or
now.
150 million for $300 million, he could have funded Planned Parenthood's government subsidy for an entire year. So the government basically gives Planned Parenthood about $300 million a year overall over all of its locations, from subsidized bills and health and stuff like that for rural health, female health, all sorts of other stuff. People like to argue that it's for abortions and whatever. A lot of times, Planned Parenthood are working sort of small clinics in rural America that specialize in female health, but they also do checkups and all sorts of other things for women. Could have subsidized them and not let the government, and could have taken the bill off of the government for $300 million. So if you add those three things together, that's still only $459 million that he spent. That means that there's still upwards of $100 million that you could still not account for that he has spent, and you could still have put that into other things. The the scale of money that he spent on this campaign is ludicrous. Um, and that is just a word that like just describes how crazy it was. But it goes even beyond that. Like when you realize how much $500 million is in the modern economy and what that could actually do, it is beyond a waste of money. It is almost unethical to do what he did, considering where he could have put that money into. It's actually literally insane because he would have made more hay giving that money basically to other people, and oops, giving it to other people and letting them sort of do something with it that could maybe enrich their lives, and he would have still had $100 million left to go, which is insane. But for those who are watching on the stream, I was just notified that my co-commentator here is just had an internet problem. So just want to take you into our politics real quick and just see what's been going on. So you see Michael Bloomberg leave the race. It endorsed Joe Biden. But of course, everybody knows that it was the only reason that he was in the race in the first place was to stop Bernie Sanders from basically trying to win the Democratic nomination. It's also the reason why Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar dropped out when they did, is so that the moderate vote would coalesce around one person, and that one person was Joe Biden. And Joe Biden is getting the votes, especially from the African American side, because he's riding the coattails of Barack Obama being his ex vice president. And they see him as a non threatening figure, whereas Bernie might be just a little too threatening and just going for too much change uh, too fast, which a lot of people are saying. So, unfortunately, that is the case. So, in the meantime, here I'm just trying to see if Tim here is going to be able to get back online. I am just double checking everything that's going on here, seeing if anybody's out there on Twitch. Drop the phone. Any question? Check. Oh, what is this? Ghost is anonymous. Don't watch that. What are you talking about? Michael Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg is. I'm so happy he dropped out. He dropped the ball on any question. You read, checked, or just talked. Nope. Universal healthcare is the most important issue. You're absolutely right. Hello, Ghost is anonymous. Yeah. Universal healthcare is the most important issue, and it is something that, unfortunately, Joe Biden is not addressing correctly. Um, and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are the two who actually reference universal health care. There are a whole bunch of studies that have already come out that said universal health care in the long run will save money for people and save 68,000, 67,000 lives a year. That's right. That's exactly what you just posted, and that's what I was actually going to quote, is that study that Bernie posted about 67,000 lives a year. For those who don't know what 67,000 is, it's it's 5 times the amount of murders by firearms. You have all of the points that I was actually going to make. You're like ahead of what I'm actually going to say, which is actually really funny. But you're absolutely right. Like people complain about all sorts of other things, and then you see things like this happen, and people are like, you know, it's like, oh, we can't afford it. It's like you can't afford saving this many lives a year just by a slight increase in a payroll deduction and taxing billionaires like what they should be actually paying contributing to society. It's insane. It makes absolutely no sense, and it just is crazy. Joe Biden wants to expand Obamacare and sort of help those who don't have it, but the problem is that he's going to even have a tougher time with what is going on with it all, unfortunately, because the Republicans are so anti the Affordable Care Act the way it is now, and by expanding it, or at least him trying to expand it, will not get very much where you're going. They need to raise the dividend and capital gains tax after 10 million to march to income tax at the very least. That's actually just the minimum of it. Like yeah, capital gains and all sorts of other things are just going to be the tip of the iceberg. I think you're going to need to have some sort of scaled contribution based on salary for people who are working, which I myself would be very much for, because I myself have a good job and I do this as a hobby, but monthly I pay just for myself uh, after tax about $200 a month in medical insurance. So like, you take that out. If they were to take out $300 pre-tax, it would be the same of what I would be paying now, and that would be more contribution directly into the government insurance program, which I would be completely okay about. And I think a lot of people would, because families in this country are paying close to $700, possibly a month, and that equates to something like $8,400 at a minimum for paying family insurance. So like you chart that out, I think pre-tax dollars you're looking at somewhere between $500 and $600, $500 and $600 every biweekly period or something like that. And you're right, military spending has to go down. That's another thing. I think the current military budget is so bloated at this point that you cannot have a budget when you're the only remaining superpower left. It makes no sense. Technology, they need to put money where it needs to go, not into bombs and planes, but into things like cybersecurity and technology, which is where it actually should go. Unfortunately, that's not where the money is going, because if you've been up to, like, if you read anything about like the F-35 program, for example, it is ridiculously like a big giant waste of money when you see them spending $48 million on a plane that doesn't do what it wants to do. What's it? What else are you saying? I hate gun control. I'm so worried last moment that I would vote for Trump based on the one issue alone. I wish Democrats would stop trying to infringe on rights on the Second Amendment. The thing about it is, with regards to gun control, the one person that they tried to get on someone being, quote, bad on guns was Bernie Sanders. uh, Bernie is actually a little bit more um, sort of liberal in the sense that I think he's not against people having guns. He comes from Virginia, excuse me, Vermont, where people actually go hunting and have responsible gun safety, and he understands that if you're a responsible gun owner, it's not going to affect anybody. So like you put the proper laws in place to actually do what you need to do, and you should be fine. And everybody else, unfortunately, is all about taking away different aspects of weapons from rifles and semi-automatics and stuff like that. Which to a point, it's like, do you need an AR-15 to go hunting? I mean, that's my personal opinion, but if you are willing to buy a gun, I think you should also have to have the classes and the how do you use that particular gun? I would be like, if you're going to buy a rifle or a very expensive rifle and you want it just because it's cool and stuff, you should go through the entire class of how to disassemble it, how to put it together, how to shoot it, what works, what doesn't work. And you have to become an expert on this gun that you're going to own, because what is the whole point of a gun? Um, and you should absolutely. I think automatically. I think any gun purchase in this country, and I think most people who have a gun would probably be okay with it. That if you haven't gone through gun classes before, the next time you buy a gun, you go through basic gun classes, even to the point of assembly and learning how a gun actually functions, because um, that type of intelligence is useful for people. So, yeah, just how to clean it. Exactly. Like, a dirty gun could backfire or something on you that could cause harm and stuff. So that's another thing that people need to know. Um, those are the things that I think people need to understand. That it is not just an issue of like there are too many guns on the street. I think there are very much so responsible people who can own a weapon like that. Um, but I think for those who want to go into that particular arena, I think you have to give them all the intelligence that goes along with it. It can't be just, oh, here you go, have a gun. I think it goes with the here you get a couple hours of range time to go along with it to sort of figure out what your gun is like. How does this work? You have a sit down class where you take apart your gun and understand what the parts of the gun actually do, what the springs do, does this coil work, like how does the bullet go into the chamber, how does it go into the thing. So you know it's like I'm for all of that. That would be, I think, absolutely necessary. You incorporate all of that stuff, and I think it changes the view on what people think about weapons and stuff. But yeah, with the whole politics thing, I mean, you're looking at who's remaining in the race. You have, and I'm gonna go off on this, so just please, it's like you have Biden, who's the middle of the road candidate, who basically the establishment is sort of rallying against. You have Bernie, who I think is the most honest person in the entire race. He basically says the same things over and over again. Whether or not you can actually enact a lot of his plans is the question. Whether or not every other Democrat or Republican will actually go with it is who knows. But it's one of those things in which it's like his intentions are good. And you gotta want an honest man considering what we have in the White House right now. And then three, you have Elizabeth Warren, who unfortunately is like, you know, she is a financial wonk and would take the banks to tasks, but she has fallen into this like I've sort of regressed against my own principles about taking money from certain people and is attacking people who shouldn't be attacking. Her and Bernie are basically ideological buddies. At the same time, they're attacking each other. It makes no sense. Yeah, and yeah, yeah, Bloomberg is gone, and Bloomberg was basically take guns from everybody. I mean, as mayor of New York, I think his record on guns was one of the like nobody should have it, not anywhere near me, and then I don't give a fuck what you say, which is probably not the right way to go about it, honestly. But it's that sort of the attitude in Washington D.C., for example. I don't know if you're familiar with um, what gun laws in D.C., but it's very rare that anybody would have a gun legal in DC because they make it so hard for a resident of the District of Columbia to actually have a gun. So if somebody gets caught with a firearm in DC, it's actually a really big deal. I think Bloomberg wanted that something similar to New York City because I think New York has one of the stricter gun laws also. Whereas and then stop and frisk was just racist. It was like the whole concept of it was if you see anybody quote suspicious, then you were able to stop them, question them, check them for weapons, but it did not give parameters over what was suspicious. I mean, it's like, is it because I'm wearing a baggy North Face sweater right now? Is that suspicious? Is my pants being too big suspicious? Um, are the colors that I'm wearing suspicious? I don't know. It was there were too many things there with regards to what was going on. Let's see. Let me check. Looks like I don't know. It looks like the internet from Tim here has not come back yet.
No, no, I'm back.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm just talking
yeah.
to our fan here, Ghost is Anonymous. Ghost Anonymous, who has been enlightened by our talk here. And he's talking about Bloomberg and gun control and things that he was that we were talking about with regards to politics and Super Tuesday. Last comment here, he said it got out of control. Regret letting it happen, and that's an awful answer. How can you expect people to vote for you when you're commander in chief of an entire army and you can't control the police department of one city? It's true. It's true. You know, he Bloomberg rode that Rudy Giuliani coattail of I was the mayor. Look at what I did when when what he did might not necessarily have been such a great job, but in his mind was uh, a great job. So Rudy Giuliani, as you can see, now him running around the Ukraine and doing stuff, being insane. Um, but he rode that I was the mayor of New York at 9/11, blah blah blah, and he was America's mayor, and people looked up to him, and then people realized he was insane.
Yeah,
So
you gotta love these politicians that are like, remember what I did, remember all the good stuff I did, remember that. Oh, oh, the bad thing that I did? No, 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 don't remember that. Just the good stuff, please.
yeah, yeah. You know, that was the whole funny part. It's like it's almost as if a lot of these guys have selective memories with regards to all of these things, and it's like people don't want us to bring up any of the bad parts. It's like, oh, okay, we'll just sweep it under the rug. We don't care. It's like that's bullshit. No way. Um,
Trying to paint themselves as a hero, and that they were in the right frame of mind at that time. You know, it's always hindsight is 2020, beautiful in the past, but and that they were there for that. That means that they can now handle what's on the plate right now. But Bloomberg spoke very little of how he would deal with all the issues that are going on in America right now. And as a matter of fact, all the debates recently were really disappointing in that they spent so much time just going after each other,
mhm.
or trying to find the little kind of like gotcha statements, or digging up dirt on each other to push themselves up just a little bit higher than the next guy to survive longer. It was just, that's not what the American people need. The American people need to be inspired by someone who's going to set the country right.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
and
I agree with
just
that.
not being as shitty as the next person is not good enough for me for president.
Well, and I myself am also personally fed up with billionaires who believe that they know better than other people. Uh, the thing about it is that a lot of people in this country believe that if you earn $1 billion, then you are in some way better than other people, which I do not believe that is the case at all. You could have earned that $1 billion by exploiting people. Look at Bezos, for example. The man is worth $124 billion. If you look at the working conditions in his Amazon distribution warehouses, they are pretty much subhuman because of what they make those people do to make a per hour sort of pick number. It is insane. Um, That is not the correct way to earn $124 billion. And there are a ton of other examples of that. You look at the billionaire mine guy, the guy that sued John Oliver, for example. What's his name? Uh, Bob Murray. That guy's a fucking billionaire, and all he does is exploit coal miners. That guy earned his money by exploiting the downtrodden, uh, like people of West Virginia, in order to build up his coal mines. And there were a whole bunch of people that died on his watch that nobody really took him to task for. That's bullshit. It's like, he had a fucking mine collapse, and they really didn't do anything to him about it, and it was well known that his conditions were unsafe and he was exploiting people. That's fucked up. And it's like that guy has no business being around the president, much less being around other people that determine policy. So there are lots of terrible examples of that, and I'm sick and tired of seeing any more. So the fact that Tom Steyer, that Michael Bloomberg, both are gone is a good thing in my opinion. The problem is that the people that you have left, the only two that I believe that wouldn't take money from billionaires, Bernie and hopefully Elizabeth Warren, but Elizabeth Warren has a super PAC that is being funded by a billionaire. So it's like, what do you got to do? It's like money rules the world. And unfortunately, it's like, and Biden's being basically supported by Buttigieg's 40 billionaires plus the rest of the Democratic establishment. So, but no matter what, whoever is left on the Democratic side, I would vote for all three of them over Trump. I really would. It's just for what Trump has done to people here in the United States is dastardly. From locking up kids in those camps to taking away, or at least trying to take away, safety nets from poor people across this country is just not fair. Yeah.
Hey,
So.
Z, throw up that. I just sent a link on the chat there. Throw that up on the screen real quick,
Oh, okay.
just to get a. Because a lot of people can't deal with big numbers, like beyond. And I don't mean this to say that some people are smarter. No, like the human brain cannot handle numbers beyond a certain point.
Yeah.
Most people can't really truly get what $1 million looks like, what $100,000 really looks like much less a billion.
Yeah.
So this thing really kind of puts to scale how much difference there is in wealth. And if you can imagine, one of those little tiny little slivers of blue means $100,000. What that means to you, me, and the next guy, then you start to get a sense of how much money these freaks have amassed. And to have that money to sit on it when there are people dying in the street,
Yeah.
you cannot be for this country. I will never back a billionaire for anything. Like if they want to go ahead and spend their money on their own trying to save the world, that is beautiful and you do that. But you don't need to be the president
Yeah. I mean,
just
like,
because you got that money.
Bill Gates is a perfect example of that. So Bill Gates, starting the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, like now what he does is he goes around the world, basically tackling a single issue and then trying to attack it. Like his big thing for a while was malaria in sub-Saharan Africa. So like buying nets for communities from buying mosquito nets. But yeah, take a look at this. Like for those who are on the stream and watching, there was somebody did another example that was very interesting, and this is with blue dots. So somebody did this with rice kernels, like little grains of rice, and each grain of rice was I think it was $10,000, and then people put the value of everybody into a small mason jar. Like Pete Buttigieg had like 10 grains of rice. Amy Klobuchar had 200 grains of rice, and you look at it in a mason jar, and it doesn't look very interesting. Elizabeth Warren had $12 million, had this much. Tom Steyer has $1.6 billion, and he had like I think it was like they weighed it as like it was like something like a pound and a half of rice. I was like, oh, that's Tom Steyer. Michael Bloomberg had 58 pounds of rice. And if you don't know how much 58 pounds of rice is, it's like if you go to an Asian grocery store and you buy like a sack of rice, and I made you buy one of those sacks of rice, like a 25-pound bag of rice,
Yeah.
that thing doesn't fit anywhere. Imagine Michael Bloomberg having two of those, and that represents his wealth at $61.9 billion. And the what you're seeing on the screen is every blue square here is just 100,000, and that is the comparative wealth versus him and the rest of the candidates. It is gross. Um, it is insane. Um, so, you know, a lot of people don't have is like I think our friend who was here on the chat is like he doesn't have any issues with billionaires being in charge. I think it's a conflict of interest. I mean, a billionaire is going to be in it to keep a billionaire rich. The man doesn't want to lose any of his money. And we can go down a rabbit hole when it comes to politics, though. It's just we could just keep going on this for hours and hours, and I think it might be time to switch topics, unfortunately, because all it's going to do is just make us madder. So yeah, but but it's just one of those things, Tim. It's just you got to be kidding me when it comes to this crazy stuff that's been going on. It's been just sort of nuts, and but yeah, um, it's going to be interesting to see who wins out on the Democratic side because California they haven't. Last night they were declaring it for Bernie, but I guess they retract it. Did they say that California is still up for grabs? I'm not really sure with what's going on there, but
No, I don't know.
mhm,
No one's out of the race, and they've even talked about a strange scenario where nobody reaches the 1,000 whatever
mhm.
um, required to kind of auto nominate them. And in that case, they'd have to make a decision. And I'm pretty sure they'd just go with the more center friendly to the DNC Biden pick
Of
there.
course they would. Like Bernie knew, I think, out of that was it 2 debates ago when they said that like would they nominate the person that was leading going into the convention, assuming that it's a split convention, and everybody said we'll see, and he was the only one that says like yeah, if I'm leading, that's who you should go with, which also traps him in the situation where if he's behind going into the convention to Biden, for example, if let's say Biden has 1,700 and Bernie has 1,600, they'd use it against him to make sure that he doesn't get the nomination. He said, like, well, you were the one who said going into the convention that if the leader is going into the convention, that's the leader that you're going to have to support. So, you know, it is what it is. So, uh, but yeah, politics is politics. What I hope is that whatever comes out of the election, um, you know, people be safe from stupid coronavirus. Nobody gets any of that. There's a travel ban at work, so going anywhere at this point is a big no-no unless it's hardcore work related. So therefore, your buddy right here, not going to be going anywhere for a while. It's going to be staying at
Even
home.
inside the US?
Yeah, even inside the U.S. So
All right.
only essential personnel are via work are now going to be going everywhere. Yeah, travel ban. Uh,
Can you work from home?
what's that? I can absolutely. Yeah. So it's like it's just one of those things. So you know. So yeah, I mean like what was it? The first person died in California today from coronavirus. So that was in California. So Ghost, I think that's where you're from. I think there was a report where I think the first person in California died from corona today. I know that a person died earlier this week from uh, from corona in the Washington area. I said 9 people died in Washington State. Really?
Yeah, I think it might even be up to 11 at this point.
Holy shit! I didn't know it claimed that high. I know there was one. I didn't realize it was already almost in double digits. Did that person like infect a shit ton of people? What the hell happened?
Was that the group that came back, that the like the Korean a Christian church group that they were all sort of in close quarters, and I think they came back. If I don't know, I could just be combining stories here, but
Hmm.
um, I think that's what I read.
Oh
But
man.
there's even now, um, it's like people who have not traveled to China, and even I think a couple people got sick because they took their neighbor to the hospital, and their neighbor had coronavirus and was coughing in the car with them, and so that family that took them there got sick, and they've got some firefighters quarantined as well who were dealing with sick patients, take them in. So
Yeah.
it's spreading like it does,
Well,
and
it's a pandemic. There's nothing you can really do about that. At this point, it's a matter of not who, but when uh, it's going to hit whatever area or metropolitan area that you live in. It's sort of shit. Um, the death rate. I think uh, the death rate is what, like 3.2%. Yeah, yeah. The only thing that you can do is play Hearthstone. Honestly, that's all that all you can really do is if you're going to be trapped at home. Uh, but it's just one of
oh,
those.
wait, I was telling my wife
Yeah.
that uh, because of what happened in China, like it is not just Wuhan. All I have friends in various places in China, but even far in the northeast, kind of near North Korea and Russia, there are still quarantine cities. So people are having to go out for groceries. Like you can send one member of your family out, and it's on certain days. Like they've got it all blocked off,
Hmm.
so they minimize how much people are exposed to each other, right? And I'm like, okay, let's do the math, right? 9 months from now, there is going to be a population explosion in China because people got nothing to do but bang it out to pass the time.
What is it? It's like when they say that when a blizzard hits on the East Coast, is like there is a correlation with blizzards and birth rate in the continental U.S. Where if like, do you remember Snowmageddon, like that happened in the D.C. area? Like I think it was like four. Was
Oh
it?
yeah, hell yeah, I
Yes,
remember that,
seven
man.
years ago
That
or
was
something like that. There was an explosion in birth rate 9 months later because all people could do was just get it on. When there was like 4 feet of snow and nobody could go outside, what are you gonna do? That's what you're gonna do.
yeah,
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's something that people are going to end up having, and people are not going to realize it. But I'm surprised that people haven't actually brought up that conversation yet, because when you see all these videos online of, like, you saw the woman basically who couldn't walk her dog, so she took the dog to the roof and was like exercising with her dog and stuff like that, doing all sorts of crazy shit. Like, that's just the minimum of all that stuff. Like, what are, like, young couples that can't go outside, what are they gonna do? What are, like,
yeah.
other
China
families and
actually
stuff?
eased restrictions, like in censorship, allowing more pornography to be downloaded and that kind of stuff during this time because
I
people are
love it.
losing their minds stuck inside.
I love it. I love it. And what is it? Is that they were saying that there are, what is it, speakers, um, uh, on corners, and, like, yeah, it is real. Like, if you're hearing it from here, yep, he's actually got friends in northern China that are basically telling him what they're doing, um, with regards to, like, how to deal with the being quarantined and stuck at home. It is insane. It is insane. And we could probably do an entire podcast of stuff that Jet has told you from China, just to give, like, a
Yeah,
realistic aspect. I think people would find that ridiculously interesting, because it's going to happen here. There are contingency plans already in most businesses with regards to what happens if Corona hits your town. There are executives who have to work separate from other executives because they don't want companies to be leaderless. So, for example, For example, there are contingency plans where half of the executives are the ones going into work, and the other half have to stay home and have to work from home, in order for them to not get quote infected from an office environment. There are there are businesses who are making all of their executives stay home, but anybody who is not at the executive level has to go into work. So like those companies are like big fuck you, to their workers and stuff. I wouldn't want to work there. But like I saw that happen. There are some companies still enforcing a 3 day. You only get 3 sick days. So if you happen to get corona, you have to use vacation. It's like a whole bunch of
Oh,
shit is coming out. It's like what the fuck is wrong with these people?
dude, no, dude. If Corona really hits here, we are in major problems because there is a good percentage of this country that cannot afford to not go to work, and they will take their coughing asses to work, cough all over each other, cough all over the people coming through the store,
Hmm.
and it will spread just from that. Just because they don't have sick days, and they can't afford to lose their job, and
Yeah.
let's say they do stay home with coronavirus and lose their job, then they lose their insurance, then they're double fucked. So
Hence
we've
why,
got a
yeah.
messed up situation here.
Hence why universal healthcare is important. And the last thing I posted this on a website, on Reddit again, about well, when people were talking about coronavirus and stuff like that, about how people are actually getting billed huge amounts if their corona test comes out negative, and insurance companies are shutting that down. They're not approving corona tests for people who are sick because they don't want to take the expense of like all of these people going out there and getting tested for corona. If you've got insurance, even though you have insurance and you are sick and you are in quote a hot zone, there are insurance companies who are turning down claims for people who have been getting tested. It's just going to turn into a giant shit show because who are going to get sick, and if they are in a zone, and they might not, they might just have the regular flu as opposed to COVID-19, uh, will need to get tested to whether or not they actually do have that particular virus. And if you don't have it and do get tested, the insurance companies are rejecting the billing for it. So you're on the hook for like $3,000 to test for corona, if you're sick, like, and you don't happen to have it. How fucked up is that? It's like the average test cost, I think they said, was like $3,400 to test whether or not you get uh, yeah, you have corona. The part is that like if you do have it, a lot of insurance companies are actually accepting the billing, but if you don't, what they're doing is that they're rejecting the claims afterwards after you get billed, which is fucked up. Ghost, it's like it's going shit. It's so shit because it's like if you are sick, but you're just regular sick, they're like they treat it as a an unapproved expense or something like that, which is what I've started to see. It is fucked up. So it's like what the hell? It's like they're trying to figure out whether or not you're actually sick before they actually decide to approve or not approve your claim. Surprise billing. Yeah. So yeah, that's already started to come out already. So there are people who are ill who don't want to get tested under the fact that they don't want to come up negative, and therefore um, have their claim then later rejected by their insurance company for taking an unnecessary procedure, which is fucked.
All
It's
right, I
like,
got
yeah,
something for you.
yeah.
You ready for this? Uh, I'm gonna put something out here before and say, don't do this. I did not come up with this
Mm.
as a actual like promotion of an idea for people to do. I'm just saying it would be interesting if people got coronavirus and weren't covered and were basically going to be screwed. If they went down to DC in the Senate and just walked around and talked to some of our elderly statesmen about the troubles that they're having with the coronavirus, it would probably clear out like a good 80% of the Senate and the House. And then we could get some new, younger blood, healthier blood in there. You know what I'm saying?
So this is very similar to the case of the man that had AIDS and knew it and was having sex with women that he did not approve of. I don't know if you've ever heard this case a long time ago, but because he was a willing donor or a willing carrier of HIV and was infecting people, he was eventually convicted of attempted murder by infecting people. I think that would happen to a person also if they had coronavirus and was went down there to talk to his representatives. Uh, uh, to basically put more time and effort into corona by basically infecting them. I think that is a form of assault, and if that person ends up dying, I think it's also uh, I think it's also manslaughter. It's not necessarily murder, but I think it's also manslaughter. So I think you could get convicted of a crime, especially if you do it to the members of Congress. So I wouldn't suggest anybody doing that right now because that would be problem. So, but yes, you're right.
It's funny.
If
Ghost.
yeah,
That the comment he made there just reminded me of like some of these guys in the Senate that are like anti-gay for 20 years, and then they find out their daughter is gay and wants to get married, and then suddenly they've seen the light. It's like that kind of shit. So
hmm
yeah, just wait till some of these guys catch something and see if a vaccine pops out real quick,
well,
or a lot of money gets sent over to it.
who's definitely buying it, taking it in the shorts right now is the Iranian government. So,
Oh God, yeah.
yeah, so the Iranian hierarchy of government, like, what is it, like, 25% of them all have corona? So it's like they these same idiots, the ones that shot down a passenger liner, were who now none of the Iranian people even trust, have been trying to tell people in their country to be careful and wash their hands and stay away from open areas and try to reassure the public, oh, it's not a real issue, when they themselves have the virus and are coughing all over people and getting people sick and doing all sorts of other stuff. Now, like a quarter of the cabinet has it, and I think one of their ministers died yesterday or 2 days ago from corona in Iran. So it's like,
Did you see the videos?
no, like I've seen the videos of the dude coughing, and like
Right,
basically
and going on the
being
news like
and
that.
going on the news and saying that like, oh, it's everything is fine. It's like, oh, what the fuck? Don't do that. It's like, what the
Hey,
hell are you doing?
my I got family members that are talking about going on a cruise, and I'm like, do you guys not read the news? Do you hear about that Diamond Princess and like all the people are stuck on there and getting,
hmm
it's just spreading really fast that way. Why would you want to go get on a closed environment with a whole bunch of strange, dirty people during a pandemic? I'm like, you're asking for it.
yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like I don't understand what are the thing about it is some people have already paid for cruises, and it's one of those
A
things
lot of
in
them are offering their money back.
back. Yeah, it's like I really am afraid about going, and I don't want to go.
I
So
saw a meme. The guy was like, you know what? If I'm going to get the coronavirus, I'd rather be in Venice when I get it, So I might as well just go.
So you can get some deals now. If you feel like that you're immune to that shit, the Europe is very cheap. Asian airlines have basically stopped carrying people. Singapore Airlines is down tremendously. I don't know if you saw the list of flight cancellations out of Singapore on Singapore Airlines, but there's a fuck ton, and they are just not carrying a lot of people anymore. It's crazy, and I think their fill is somewhere around like 45% or something like that. It's like half empty planes going to different countries and stuff. It's crazy. So it's like you want to get a flight deal. This is it. It's like the last time I saw anything like this was the '08 crisis, where I got a trip to Jamaica. I got a trip to the Bahamas for less than I think $700, and I got put up in a hotel that was was a giant suite, and everything all included was like $700, and I was like the only one there at the time. And I was like, I had a job, I had money, I didn't care. But like all these people had canceled their vacations, and I was able to do all of these things without any lines and stuff. It was fucking great. I won money in the casino. It was awesome.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, but this is completely different. So, all right,
Yeah.
yeah, we've been going on for an hour or so. I think it's time to give it up. A nice re-entry back into the Twitch market. Got a guy. Hopefully, Ghost, who is watching, hit the follow button. You get to see us here every Wednesday. We try our best to get online at around 10 o'clock, and we talk about relationship issues most of the time. But we're going to try to incorporate, I guess, general topics a little more. Just to sort of round about our coverage of stuff and fix the overlay here a little bit and try to get Tim onto a live camera so that we can interact with myself here. But I think that's going to be us. That's going to be it for us tonight. For those who are watching, thank you so much. Hope you've enjoyed the conversations that we've had here about everything from Reddit to the coronavirus. Everybody stay safe.
All right. Yeah. Take care, guys. Be
Yeah.
well.